this video, we will look at Stack Overflow Developer Survey results. Our 90,000 developers that responded to the poll in 2023. This year's participants are 20,000 more developers than in 2022. Stack Overflow has been doing this survey for 13 years. This is the voice of the developer, answering questions on how they learn and advance their skills, the tools they use now, the ones they would like to use in the future. First one is developer profile. Learning to code. Learning to code from online sources increased from 70% to 80% since the 2022 survey. Let's see more details about it. Almost 80% of people like to learn code from online resources like videos, blogs, or forums. I also prefer using these resources to learn programming. The second one is books and physical media, which is about 51%. The third one is school. Most students learn code in school. I am surprised to see bootcamps are only 9%. When comparing people of different ages, we find that younger people prefer learning online, while elder people prefer reading books. Learning resources to code. Let's see what developers use more resources to learn to code. People learn new skills in different ways. Sometimes I don't like documentation, but according to this survey, the top websites used by developers learning to code are technical documentation with 63,319 responses. When I was a beginner, I felt that documentation was very tough. I feel that documentation is a little bit tough for beginners. I couldn't understand the docs at the beginning of my journey, or maybe I think this survey is filled by most senior developers. But the second one is Stack Overflow. I mostly use Stack Overflow to fix bugs. Even that kind of learning you cannot call a proper resource to learn, as we learn from YouTube, W3 School, or Free Code Camp. The third one is blog. 53,000 plus developers learn from blogs. I also have read a lot of well-written blogs. How-to videos are also a great source to learn code. Course platforms to learn code. Let's discuss the best online sources developers use to learn how to code. 37,000 plus responses got for this survey question. The original question was, what online courses or certifications do you use to learn to code? 65% developers use Udemy to learn code. Second one is Coursera. The third one is Codecademy. I don't know why they didn't add YouTube into the list, because mostly self-taught developers from the third world countries learn from YouTube, including me. Finally, we have Udacity with 30% and Skillsoft, which I don't know what that is. Now let's talk about developer roles. Few developers consider themselves to be a single developer type and instead showcase a diversity of skills. The majority of the responses are full stack developer, backend developer, and front-end developer. If we look at the percentage, like 33.5 almost are full stack developer, 17.8% are backend developer, and only 6.6% are front-end developer. I don't know why people don't want to become front-end developer, because maybe mostly people don't like to design things. And fourth one is desktop or enterprise application developer, and fifth one is mobile developer. There are also many other roles, and the student counts for 2.6%. The next section is key territories. Across the world, developers and technologists turn to Stack Overflow to gain and share knowledge. Our survey received responses from almost every country on Earth. The majority of the poll responses, 30%, came from the USA and Germany, then from India and United Kingdom and Northern Ireland. More than 60% of respondents are from the top 10 nations. On the reverse of the ranking from 22, Germany surpassed India to take the second place this year. Top 10 countries are like, first one is USA, second one is Germany, India, United Kingdom, and Ireland at 4. And the fifth one is Canada, sixth one is France, 8 Poland, and like others. This year's Stack Overflow just asked one question about age instead of several questions. 43% of professional developers are 25 to 34 years old. But we can see that the majority of respondents who are learning to code are between the ages of 18 to 24. Each year, Stack Overflow explores the tools and technologies developers are currently using and the ones they want to use in future. In this survey, they also included questions about AI tools. In this video section, we will talk about programming languages, databases, cloud platforms, web frameworks, other tools, IDE, or integrated development environment. First, let's see most popular technology. This year, they compared popular technologies across 3 different groups: our respondents, professional developers, and those that are learning to code. Number 1, programming languages, programming, scripting, and markup languages. For the 11th year in a row, JavaScript will continue to be the most widely used programming language in 2023. Python has overtaken SQL as the third most commonly used language, but placing first for those who are not professional developers or learning to code. Professional developers of the top 3 technologies are the same as last year: JavaScript, HTML, CSS, and SQL. But it's a different picture for those learning to code. HTML, CSS, and JavaScript are almost tied as the most popular languages for people learning to code. Student developers use Python more than SQL, while professionals use SQL more than Python. Compared to professional developers, those learning to code are more likely to report using Java, C++, and C#. These are top tech used by professionals. The first one is JavaScript, 65.8%. The second one is HTML, CSS with 52%. Third, we have SQL, and fourth is Python, about 45.3%. And C#, C++, and PHP are in the top 10 tech. But if we look at learning to code respondents, then Python is number 3 and SQL is at 4. But HTML, CSS, and JavaScript are the same. While in other coders, Python is the number 1 programming language. According to professional developers, TypeScript is 43.7%, Bash shells are 32.7%. Java is still popular with 30%. According to this survey, Java is still the 4th important language. C#, C++, and PHP in the top 10 tech, but C is losing its popularity. Now let's talk about databases. This year, PostgreSQL replaced MySQL as the top databases. Professional developers are more likely to use PostgreSQL than those who are learning to code. Those who are learning to code are more likely to use MySQL. MongoDB is the second most popular database for people learning to code, behind MySQL. According to professional developers, top databases are PostgreSQL with 49.09% response. MySQL is second, SQLite is 30.17%, and fourth one is Microsoft SQL, and fifth one is MongoDB. Cloud platforms. If we talk about cloud platforms, Amazon Web Services or AWS remains the most used cloud platform for our responses. AWS is almost doubling the percentage of the second most used cloud platform for our respondents, Microsoft Azure. People learning to code are still using AWS. Interestingly, Heroku was the most used cloud platform last year, but those learning to code, but it dropped to the number 5 this year. If we look at these stats, AWS is about 53% and Microsoft Azure is 27.8%. Google Cloud 24%, almost Firebase 15.3%, Cloudflare, DigitalOcean, and Heroku respectively. If we look at Heroku, that is only about 11.8. And then we have Vercel, Netlify. Web frameworks and technology. Node.js and React.js are the most common web technology used by our respondents. Professional developers use both fairly equally, and those learning to code use Node.js more than React. Next.js moves from 11th position in 2020 to 6th position this year by popularity with those learning to code. According to professional developers respondent, React and Node.js is almost equally 52%. jQuery is 22%, and then Angular and Express frameworks. But if we look at the learning to code respondents, Node.js is at top position with 42.5% responses. React.js is second one with 37% almost. Then Express, jQuery next. At sixth we have Django, Python backend framework to build websites. According to other coder respondents, most resources are the same as in the learning to code section. If we talk about other frameworks and libraries, Stack Overflow broke down .NET this year to be more precise, and .NET 5 Plus is once again at the top of the list for other frameworks and libraries. More people learning to code use Pandas and NumPy than .NET. This year, Stack Overflow also added a few additional alternatives. Covered that RabbitMQ is pretty well liked by professionals, 14%. Similar to last year, Python libraries continue to do well in the area among those beginning to code. OpenCV and OpenGL have risen to the top 10 list. Professional developers, top 5 other libraries of frameworks are .NET 27%, .NET Framework 148 is almost 19%. Then we have NumPy, Pandas, and Spring Framework. If we talk about other tools, this year Docker is the top used tool amongst our respondents, rising from its second spot to first spot this year. Rising from its second spot, people learning to code are more likely to be using NPM, Node Package Manager, and then Docker. Both are used alongside languages that are popular with students like JavaScript and Python. So first we have 56.6% Docker, then NPM, PEP, and Yarn, and a lot of others with a few percentages. IDE. Now let's talk about IDE, Integrated Development Environment. Visual Studio Code remains the preferred IDE across all developers, and increasing its use from 75% to 81% this year among all developers. So first one is VS Code with 74%, and then we have Visual Studio 28%, and then we have IntelliJ IDEA and Notepad, Vim, Android Studio, PyCharm, Sublime Text, Jupyter Notebook, WebStorm, PHP Storm, Rider, and a lot of others.